Hello and welcome to the Delirium Engine, where we play Dungeons and Dragons on our off time, and on our on time, we talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Today I have with me, I'm being Mekhalikhar, of course, I have Mr. Dagwood and the Spartan. I couldn't remember their not real names for a second, which is good, because often I can't remember their real names. And today, we're leaving our endless black screen. Let's see how long we got. 30 seconds of black screen. Now that's good radio. Whoa! I gotta really stop doing that. But today we're on the last boss. The final series, the final episode in our series of rules for players and rules for GMs. And in theory, I'm going to assemble this all and write it into some sort of text format and create some sort of book out of it.
Really?
We'll see. We'll see if that happens.
That sounds like shooting for the moon.
I don't know. I figure it's about an essay each one. But next episode...
What, like a 30-page essay each one, or...?
No. Well, I don't know, maybe. No, if it was anything, it would probably be closer to like, what would I call it? Whatever. Maybe I put it in my list of stuff already. But, probably something like a short, like, 3 or 4 page essay.
Fair enough.
Tops for each chapter.
Yeah.
With 14 rules. You know, that's a small manifesto.
Especially with examples and specifics.
Yeah. But the next series is going to be I Character, which is which will be an in-depth look on individual parts of a character. I have the sheet for it somewhere, but I seem to have misplaced it. So whatever. But let's move on to our topic at hand. We all know what we're talking about today. Some of you have made notes. Hopefully the hug box won't be real. Hopefully it'll be a vigorous and nasty and spite-filled debate filled with the kind of vitriol that we look for in a TV show.
Yeah.
So without further ado, our topic is the last boss being, if I can get the click correct, Rule 7. The GM is not always correct. Rule 0 is garbage when the game is on. So as I normally do, let me go ahead and explain what I'm talking about here, and then we'll see what you guys have to say about that.
Alright.
So the GM is not always correct. That's pretty self-explanatory. It means the GM, for the most part, is a human too, and is prone to errors. Sometimes egregious errors that require you to speak up and tell him he's wrong. Or he's doing something ridiculous and ruining his own game, and requires you to speak up and tell him that he's doing wrong. Or whatever. And that requires you to get up, speak up, tell him he's doing wrong, and argue your case. And if your case doesn't work out, keep that precedent in mind for later, because he made that precedent real. Which brings us to part 2. Rule 0 is garbage, because if the GM has cool fiat to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, for whatever reason, and just hide under Rule 0's ample skirt, then your GM is, well, he's worthless. You can't reason with somebody who can just play the Rule 0 card anytime, anywhere. The only time Rule 0 is applicable, and we'll get into it later, is before the game has even started, when you've explained to your players what the game should be. And that is just a matter of negotiating the system with the players. So if you want to play Shadowrun in the D&D rule set, you can do that. Or whatever. Okay. So, let's go on. The Spartan. What do you think? Opening comments.
Opening comments,
Yeah.
alright. I agree the GM is not always correct, but I don't think Rule 0 is as bad as you say it is. To within reason, of course.
Okay, good. That's fine.
Like,
We'll have to argue that.
yeah.
Alright, what about Mr. Dagwood? What do you think? Spartan thinks Rule
as a
0
GM,
is
I
good.
make tons of mistakes. I do. And I do try to correct them. And I think having whatever privilege necessary to correct mistakes, or even for the sake of the game, by all means. But I don't think people should use Rule 0 as a crutch. Especially if it's something that's otherwise clear and, unequivocally placed in the rules. It's inarguable. It says right here on page 106, bam, right? However, That said, I think it is abused. I think it's overused.
Okay. That sounds good.
I
That's a
can
good
see that.
start. So, in the four corners, so really the contention here is rule 0.
Yes.
Everybody thinks GM is not always correct. Well, that's an absolute too. If I were to say the GM is always correct, that's an absolute that doesn't make much sense. But the absolute is the one we've got contention in, and that's rule 0 is garbage when the game is on. So, okay. You know what? Let's see here. We'll have the Spartan here give us an example of when rule 0 is not garbage when the game is on. Let's see. What do you got to say for yourself? The Inquisition is on. Doom doom.
Oh, jeez. Well, in a custom game, or any game really, that has slightly modified the way the rules work, such as talking about Rule 0 before the game starts, it can cause, I guess, paradoxes or parts where it doesn't mesh correctly, where Rule 0 will have to be called in to fix the problem.
Okay, just an example off the top of your head, even if it's theoretical.
Okay,
I got one.
alright.
Alright, Mr. Dagwood, take the helm
a-
here.
In
Yeah.
5th edition, ballistas are technically weapons, and Eldritch Knights can be bonded to a weapon and summon it.
Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. Just pop
big-
into Ballista
A big
anytime you
four-man
want.
ballista?
Okay.
That's a Rule 0. No, you're not just pulling in a Ballista whenever you
All right
want.
then. All right. So you've started the game and you chose a bad system that wrote a bunch of bullcrap in it. Okay? But you as your players have all agreed to this, and one clever player has decided that this is what he's going to do. He's going to break the game.
Yes.
He decided to do something OP. And you as the GM has decided, using your Rule 0 precedent, that you are going to put the banhammer on him. Yeah, I can't agree with that, because being OP is okay. I think, allow me to refer to a previous rule here. Which one is this? Oh, yes! Rule 6. Game balance is inherent in storytelling. It is okay to abuse the system because powerful people exist. And there are 2 narratives that will take place. Narrative 1, that character is special. Narrative 2, that character is not special, and everybody knows the trick.
It's true. It's true.
I suppose so.
So, I would say that your example is a poor one.
Well,
If
To
something
be fair, it's not my example. I just agreed with it.
This
Your
example,
example was poorer because it wasn't there.
but okay, well, but in that case, in the case where the GM has to ban some sort of abuse of the system, that doesn't work. I guess if there is some inherent problem with the game mechanics, like, I know the one off the top of my head I can think of is like in Bessem, if the GM allows a certain series of rules, you can essentially go infinite and produce infinite of something.
Yeah.
Like we did this in a game, and I literally filled the universe with material, and
Okay.
and they had to. But
That
the
makes-
GM
that
ran with the
makes-
storyline.
that
They
makes you
they
Doomsday.
they all got in rocket ships and went to different universes. They all went to interdimensional rocket ships and blipped away, and I was left alone in the universe. But even still, like that's. I don't know, that made it part of the story too. Everybody had to escape. You know, my character died, but he died by winning and killing everything or whatever. Like,
Well, yeah, but some people don't want their universe to be covered in material. So,
Oh, but we're going back
But-
to 0.
just
1.
like wipe the board.
Once again,
there
though,
you go.
Rule 0 is garbage when the game is on, according to the rule. You accepted these rule sets. You actually, as the GM, decided you wanted those rule sets. And some intrepid player that you are playing with has decided he's gonna use his player powers of reading and taking things logically and do what he wants to do. And just because it ruins your fantasy adventure, the GM's fantasy adventure, his power fantasy, he followed your rules.
I.
So either he's special, and fills the universe with material, or it's a common practice and someone has an idea of how to stop it.
Players who read, they're so great and
I
so
know,
terrible.
so freaking amazing.
But before the game started, you chose that rule set. So
Well,
now you have
I
to
don't-
banhammer your own rules.
I don't think that they chose that rule set with you specifically in mind.
Well, nobody chooses anything with any character specifically in mind. But that's the point. Someone goes, oh, I'm going to play, I don't know, let's pick some random bad system. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And they're all like, okay, well, I'm just going to take Lucky like 3 times. And then other GMs go, wince, I hate that feat because it basically lets me never crit fail and never have disadvantages and.
Well, there's
Within a limit.
there's inherent problems with systems as it is.
Well-
There's certain places.
No, but
But you
people
accept
miss things.
the point is you accept that system when
Well-
you choose to play it.
Yeah, but there might be issues with it.
Once the game
Something
has
that
started-
you may have to rectify because you didn't know it was there until after the game started.
Next game.
What do you mean next game?
That's when you rectify it, when this game is over and the next game begins. Or at the end of the session, at the very least. The end of the session, like what I've done with like when I do cast, right? Like with and that's the system for people who are newly listening. That's the system I invented that I shill for on occasion. When I was playtesting it, people would do things that are broken sometimes. But I wouldn't say they can't do those things and retcon it right then and there. I'd let them grandfather the broken rule in and keep it in their characters. But I would also give them the option of, redefining that trait that they made and bring it into line with the new, now retconned rules, and gain a character point for being so
Bribery.
clever as to find the problem with the game, a glitch in the system. But with that said, though, like, in something like 5th edition, obviously you can't do that, right? Like, you could, but at the end of the session, you'd have to be like, okay, I get it, you found an exploit, gain a level, but we got to change it now. Like, we need to change it.
It breaks the story.
Or we'd have to
they
change
wouldn't
it
be able to do
from
it.
exploitive to, like, just strong, maybe. Like, this is me thinking, like, I'm thinking filling the universe with material kind of levels of broken. Or I think there's a 3rd edition exploit off the top of my head where it's like you combo Cancer Mage with some disease that gives you unlimited strength, and you could literally one-punch man any object on the planet to do like 10 bajillion damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this, like things that go into infinity and like infinite loops and stuff is sort of what I'm talking about here. Like these things are
Infinite
brutal.
ready actions with peasants?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's the Supreme Samurai trick from 3rd edition, where it's like you have peasants lined up in a row and you could literally teleport by killing people.
Okay. No. See, like stuff like
there
that
was
you
one.
don't catch.
Yeah,
Like, if you let people do that, they'll.
stop playing shitty systems.
Well,
I think that might be
there's
more of a-
problem. You just said even with cast, there's issues
Well, yeah,
that you
that's
don't
true.
notice.
Yeah, that's fair. And
Like it's in every
but
system.
I also say that when the game is on and they found the exploit, they can have it. In this game, they're allowed to keep that exploit. Now, I'll negotiate with them. Maybe I'll try to bribe them with like lucrative rewards to get rid of them. So like let's say it was something that was really game breaking, and I'm just like, guy, 5 character points, and we take this away. Usually they'll take the deal. Like most players are pretty normal. Like they're not just gonna be like, no, this exploit's ridiculous. I need to have it. And if that's the case, we run with it, right? We try to find a way to make it go away, but
Make it a story.
then you just
item.
say in the future, well, we live with, you make it a story part of the story. Somebody broke the game, he becomes the next Xanadu the Wizard King who can bend reality and do all sorts of insane stuff. He has a trick that was unbelievable.
Just because he's a kobold. That's why? Yes, that's why. He became Pun Pun or whatever.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah. See,
That would be that's the approach that the rules sort of suggest with this. It's like if somebody was clever enough to break the system, you don't punish them by having them have wasted their time. You reward them, or you let them have it for this game. And you say, okay, in the next game we're modding this thing. Like I'm assuming we're talking about like a bad system like 5th. Where it's
Sure.
like you mod this thing and you say, okay, in this game we're running it, but I have a page list of things that I don't like and we're not having. And if you guys play with this, I will literally shoot you with lightning. Or whatever. Like, whatever mod you want to put in. Like, maybe you actually fixed it because you're a bit of a game designer yourself. And believe me, that stuff's pretty easy. It takes time, but it's not that hard.
No.
Or you just say no. These are no's, and anything that touch that is a no that's on my no list, meteors every second until you're dead. And if you find a way to abuse that, I literally just kill you. The meteors come to life and kill you.
Like they grow fists, just like the tree in the background. And pow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the
Drop
clever
a mountain on you.
Yeah. Now the clever player will find a way to keep that system breaking thing on their person. They're like, you said meteors would fall instantly.
Good thing
So I'm gonna use that.
anti-gravity spell.
I'm gonna use that to my advantage.
Yes. How would you do that? I don't know. Just
But you know what I'm saying.
Carpet blanket in area.
That's sort of the position I would say I have to take on this. Is like, if someone is going to do that, if someone's going to break your system, too bad. And if for some reason the system is so wonky, like you're playing some rinky-dink system that can't handle basic concepts correctly,
like Fatal.
like Fatal, yeah, that's a good one. It's based on real history, though. At least I heard.
Fuck. Oh my god. Sorry, pardon my language.
Yeah, there you go. Fatal Games, everybody, based on real history. Look it up. It's probably one of the best tabletop games out there for reading and laughing at.
You give terrible advice to people.
It's really bad.
I
If
don't
you've never heard of
recommend it.
Fatal,
No.
just as an aside for our wonderful viewers, the Fatal system
You
is
roll a
based on real history.
Okay.
And there are tables for everything. Like, say, your sword swings. You swing a sword. Okay? Roll to hit. You could literally hit them in the anus. Okay?
Okay.
And it roll
But you
on
can
how
also
many
hit them in
pieces
the
of-
butt, but you can hit them in the anus.
Okay.
Right? And if you hit them in the rump end anywhere, pretty much, there's a table to determine how much fecal matter comes out of their posteriors.
Which
Why?
I'll tell you.
Because Fatal Games is based on real history. That's why.
Oh.
Okay?
Like there's actually a table where you roll at the beginning of character creation. You roll a percentile to determine the let's just say the maximum diameter of your anus. And this comes into play because you might take tearing damage. Well, you see a crit fumble can take on a whole new level
Based on real
of
history.
intimacy.
But even more so, there's excellent magical items.
I tripped.
My
honey, that's how I
my
fell
two
into his
favorites that have stuck with me are the armor of Jewy Chewbacca.
What?
Okay, so this is a suit of full plate mail that will
Okay.
make your nose grow and your hair turn to curled locks. You'll walk with a slight hunch, and you'll have a covetous love of money.
Okay.
All right, but also there's another armor called the armor of Nigeria's nincompoopery.
Are you just fucking with me?
No,
This is
no, those are legit
stuff.
items. No, that's real. Look it
That's
up.
Actually, in
Yeah, and this armor increases the melanin in your skin and makes your penis look larger. Look like a larger penis than you otherwise had, but it actually isn't. Just keep that in mind there.
Okay.
Very important piece of information for the armor you're wearing. Your dick looks bigger, but it isn't really. Just looks that way.
and God forbid you actually look at the spell casting rules.
I think it like curls your lip too, like it makes your lip bigger. Oh, it's ridiculous. Every horrible stereotype in those two armors you can have, yeah, based on real history. Fun fact.
Yeah,
Huh. Okay.
it's just terrible.
It's really bad.
It's
yeah,
badly
it
written.
sounds
It's a bad.
fucking
It's
horrible.
not just like someone took a good system and put crazy stuff in it. Like you got to realize this is crazy from the roots up. Like the crazy started in the soil that the plant was planted in.
I might have a PDF on my computer somewhere,
Oh, God.
but I'd have to find it. Because I kept it from my university days, I'm pretty sure. We had
Okay.
a copy of Fatal.
I might just look it up at home myself.
Your soul is probably better off if you don't.
No.
Oh, it's good.
It's
It's
worth
good
the
stuff.
laugh.
It's good.
It's worth the
Alright.
laugh.
It's it's worse than Holy Lands.
I haven't heard of that one either.
Holy Lands is the Christian role-playing game.
Oh, geez.
I have the book somewhere in one of these boxes.
I don't know. I knew a nice Mormon who made a missionary class. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was for 3.5 though.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's
Was
pretty
it
good.
a
Did it turn out? Did you play with it?
No, but I looked it over and it was actually well balanced, but it was like a non-blasphemous cleric who was really about converting the heathens rather than curing wounds.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was actually pretty good.
Fair enough. Benny Boop.
Oh,
Anyway,
Boop, yeah.
so yeah, okay. So yeah, other than this flimsy defense that these guys have for Rule Zero, where they're like, players can abuse our systems, and we might have to deal with
Well, it's not
powerful
necessarily
PCs.
just players.
Oh, okay.
It can cause issues in the game system if you're running your own like rinky-dink modded rule set. It can cause issues
Okay,
that might need rule zeroing, like
so you run
until
your
after.
So you run your rinky-dink rules,
Yeah.
modded rule set, and
Yeah,
then
we're running fatal
and then-
here.
okay, suddenly
Like-
people are rolling for anal damage,
Let's
and
not.
so people are rolling for anal damage, and it causes a rift in the time-space
Ah.
continuum.
Yeah,
I
like-
cast rectal resistance.
You can, and maybe your time-space will be maintained. How are we even here still? Okay,
Don't know.
All right.
going off the rails. It's like the 10 subs party all over again.
Oh, jeez.
But yeah, okay. So like you're saying, then there's a chance that the rule set that you picked could cause some problems. Like, well, okay,
Inherently. Yeah.
some
Yeah.
inherent problems. Like, I don't know.
That you might not notice until the game is on. It's like, well, this breaks everything, like regardless of GM or players.
Okay.
Rule Zero may, of course, within reason, be useful in that instance.
Okay, so this is running under some sort of assumption that you're play testing your system, right? And everybody
Sure.
is under the assumption that you're play testing it. Like that, you know, that's like, yeah, we're gonna try this module out and see if it works out. And if it doesn't work out, well, maybe we'll just retcon everything, right? And you know,
Well, it doesn't even need retconning, really. It's just fix it on the fly.
well, what is the fixing it on the fly? Then?
Like, I don't know, doing 10 million damage in a single strike against the boss. Like,
so no, you can't
or
do
the
that.
boss does 10 million damage against the players because of one small loophole that ramps up or some such nonsense. It'd be like, no, just I'm not gonna blow all my level 1 players out of the frickin' water because there's a loophole that I didn't notice and nobody else noticed because we don't all read the rule books like from page to page like Bryant Baxter does.
Does nice. Thanks for the docs, I might add.
Holy shit.
Docs my
Sorry.
last name. Oh my god! Now everyone's gonna look me up. It's gonna be
now
horrible.
you're double doxed?
Oh, I'm double doxed now.
Oh my god.
Oh well.
I'm sure you'll be fine.
Yeah, I think it's okay. That's fine. They'll just go after my job. Guess I'll have to have a budding YouTube career now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
it.
well.
It's over.
Live by the sword, die by the sword, eh? That's the thing.
That's it. That's how it goes.
Well, anyway, I guess to counter this idea, right? Now, you've already established in-game that this is like some pretty finicky rules that you're playing with. Because like you've already established this is some homebrew stuff that you're throwing in there. That you're like, that's real experimental. You know, anal damage might go nuclear. We're not sure. We're going to try it out. And, you know, like all the players come into the game with the understanding that if the anal damage goes nuclear, things are going to get fixed.
Yes.
What
Right.
is even happening?
Is this even
I don't
Rule
know.
0? Like, is
Well,
this Rule 0 that's
yeah.
fixing this problem? The GM, like, because just for reference, let's take a look at Rule 0, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Just so people might know. We're going to use the Urban Dictionary definition because the other
best
one's
dictionary.
real milk toast. The Urban Dictionary definition of Rule 0 is the unwritten rule of tabletop role-playing games. The game/dungeon master has the right to veto anything any player says. He has the right to change any rule or make up his own. He need not explain why he chooses to do these things. If players complain, the GM may choose any of the following to the player. Slap, call a dumbass, restrict snack hitch privileges, and or threaten injury to in-game characters, be it through loss of XP, health, items, or gold. The Google search for it is the game master can override published game rules for any reason. So Rule 0 is, the game master can override published rules for any reason. And so...
Okay, that level of Rule 0 is a bit
This
much.
is the milquetoast version.
Yeah, I know!
Not
it's
the slap
milquetoast.
them and tell them that they can't have snack time anymore.
Withhold the Mountain Dew.
I really disagree on the fact that it says, for any reason. And as far as the Urban Dictionary version goes, no, not whatever a player says. If somebody says, oh, listen, I made this character using, the 3, or even just the player's handbook, that's core rule. Everyone's going into the game with the assumption that if that's the system you're using, that's kosher. If it's not, then, as Mekhalikhar pointed out...
Oh! Now we're not doxing!
Then it's just... Then clearly you picked the wrong system. But that said, there is a privilege to being the referee of the game that includes, yes, sometimes being necessary to fix something that has gone terribly, terribly wrong the moment it happens. Personally, I agree that it's way better for it to happen in between sessions. I think that is a very, very rare incident for it to actually occur during a session.
Well, I can agree with that.
Well, okay.
But I don't think that it's just for any reason. I think that the DM has agreed to use the same books, and if they want to change some things, that should be, again, as you pointed out, up front, before the campaign even starts. They should say, hey, listen, before any of you even think about taking the lucky feat, I don't like it, so I'm going to change the way it works. Fine. But as far as it goes, I think the whole fundamental level of a role-playing game is that this is a cooperative experience. You're not supposed to be antagonistic to your players. And so most often use of Rule 0 for me is when I've screwed up and I need to change something. And it's a way for me to do that on the fly. Ideally, I wouldn't make those mistakes, but sometimes they need to be fixed right away. And sometimes that even means saying, oh, you're right, you were invisible, you shouldn't have been able to be counterspelled. Let's redo that last round.
That's not Rule 0, though. That's
What do
not
you mean
Rule
that's
0
not
that you're
Rule
evoking.
0?
You're not evoking Rule 0. I'm looking at this Rule 0.
We're not looking at that Rule
No,
0.
I'm looking at this one or the Urban Dictionary ones. The understanding of Rule
This is the
0.
public version, not
Like-
our personal version.
Okay,
Within reason.
Within
Is what
a
I'm
very,
saying.
very
No,
tight
but
leash.
what
Like,
you're doing,
not this
what
free
you-
reign freaking lawnmower the players whenever you want rules here.
Either way, let me just explain my thinking here, okay? So, Rule 0 is about the GM making decisions outside of the rules of the game and imposing new rules on the game when he desires, for whatever reason. Pretty much. Okay? You may have noble reasons in mind, and you may think your noble reasons are good. But it is not evoking Rule 0 if all of your players agree to the change. You're not evoking Rule 0. All you're doing is just all talking amongst each other, and you're saying, okay, let's for the sake of the game, change this out. Right? But as soon as one player says, no, that's not how this is going to go, we're playing by the rules, that's when the GM starts evoking Rule 0.
Okay, you're saying that the Rule 0 is when the foot goes down.
Yeah, that's Rule 0. This is where I'm.
All right, so let's
based
talk
on
about
what
the
we're
foot.
reading here,
We've gone
based
from
on
anus
how
to foot.
I sort of understand
Anus
it,
to foot,
we
okay.
once again, just like the whole series, if all the players agree, it's not an argument anymore. Because there's no argument when all the players agree. Everything works when the players are happy, right? We're talking about when the player, at least one player is not happy, and the GM's just like, dun, dun, and you know the hammer, the gavel falls. The GM makes his ruling for his ham-fisted reason, or whatever reason he wants. His noble,
He wants all the Mountain Dew.
his noble reason. He doesn't like your 200 strength orc that you just wrote up, and he tells you that that guy is dumb and you can't have a 200 strength orc, and he can only be 5 strength.
He can be 200 strength.
And I'm changing the rules. Orcs get minus 20 to their strength. Oh, you got 200 strength? Minus 180 then.
I'd still be okay with that.
Well,
Level 1. But still, yeah, no, that's okay,
broken.
I think first things first. It comes down to the question: does the DM have that right? At the end of the day, do they get final say?
Well, it depends.
Yeah.
They evoke Rule 0, and the players go, I guess you're right. You are the GM. Then they bow their heads in shame, continue on, put on their
Rocks
drone
fall,
hats.
Everyone dies.
Well, no, you don't have to like beat them over the head with it. If somebody makes a 200 strength orc, I mean, you could go with that, but the guy would be like the size of a house and unable to move because his muscles are so freaking big, and then he'd have a heart attack because his heart could fit in his chest.
See, that's Rule 0.
Yeah,
Well, like,
that's not true.
okay,
The
maybe
player-
not
the
the
player
heart.
thinks that
Maybe
he's
not the heart
scrawny.
attack.
The player's like, no, he's got perfect heart condition, like heart. He's got high con, perfect heart. He's actually real skinny and kind of weedy looking.
Well,
He just
no.
punches people like One Punch Man style, and things explode.
Do we point out that force goes both directions on impact?
He doesn't matter. He's so strong, it's irrelevant.
He just
No, but he
flexes
doesn't
his-
weigh anything.
That's fine.
What do you mean that's fine?
He does
fine.
He weighs enough.
Personally,
He'd have to weigh
I
like
actually
300
wanna-
tons.
I wanna-
Perfect. He does.
I want to try
He
to
just
run a
looks real
campaign.
scrawny.
No.
That's what the rules say.
No.
I can.
that
There's
would-
no rule for
that
my
would-
weight. I'll just say what my weight is.
No, there's...
No,
There
player
are
gets to pick.
tables for
Player
weight.
gets to pick.
It's true. It's
Up to a point.
No.
Yes.
it's in the book.
What game system do you play that you have to roll on a table for your weight?
Pathfinder has table rolls.
Oh my
Like,
God.
yeah, you can just
What
say
an
I weigh
oppressive
like
system.
30 pounds, but you'd probably like fly away at the breeze.
Oh my god.
Well, you can say that though.
If you're a certain
Can you say that?
Character
Can you
race?
just
Sure.
give a unlimited upper limit?
well, it
Can I weigh 999,000 pounds?
no,
Why?
because you wouldn't be able to move.
Sure I could. I have
I
200
have
strength.
unlimited strength.
Okay. We're,
No, I
this
think,
doesn't involve Rule 0 either because it's pre-game anyway.
I
Fair
think-
so
enough.
I
Fair
think,
enough.
I think this does
your
point out something.
arguments of ridiculousness are mute.
I think it does come down to saying that, all right, if you can negotiate with your player, that's ideally what should happen. Let's be
Yes.
honest, that if there is a situation where somebody's being a butthead, and like, let's say everyone talks about it, and the DM, your view is right, what you said is actually correct, and everyone agrees except for one guy who wants to be a butthead about it.
Okay.
And let's say objectively, I know it's a hard thing to prove, but let's say objectively someone from the outside goes, oh no, that totally makes sense. It's a total, logical, sensible,
Yeah.
good idea. But one player's just being, opposed to it for the heck of it. Or for whatever stupid reason. Point is that he's not going to bend, he's not going to budge, and he's going to be a turd about it. Well, at that point, that's just being a bad player.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with whether or not you have the right to invoke Rule 0. That's just a way of dealing with a bad player then. Of which case, there are other ways to deal with them, including, go home, Jeff.
You're done.
I invoke Rule 00. This is my house, and you don't get to stay here. Then we will play together in harmony without you.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's a little bit. That's even more extreme.
it's ridiculous.
All right. I will concede to the Rule 0 standing. it makes sense what you guys say.
Peer-
And while
it's peer
I
pressure.
might not entirely agree, I can understand where you're coming from.
All right, so just so I can like
Condense into a
condense
snippet.
it into a snippet and rub it in a little.
Thanks.
What you're saying then is you are conceding that Rule 0 being used as a sort of despotic hammer with which the GM
Can beat his
can
players.
beat his
is
players
wrong.
is no good.
Yes.
All right, or even to make what they might see as fair rulings to debilitate the players that may be too strong in his eyes is also wrong. Unless the players
Also
agree that, yeah, you're right, this is a little bit nuts. Or you sufficiently bribed them to
Sure.
to move in the direction that way. And frankly, to me that's the solution. That's the real solution.
Bribery?
Is bribery.
I'm actually
Your
gonna-
player has taken the time and the effort to be a rules lawyer enough that he's built some ridiculous, redonkulous character. Let him have a couple of levels and 5,000 golds. Or he won in a lottery. Doesn't matter. Or give him a cool magic item. Like, let him have it. You know, good. Here, this will substitute for your power, but it doesn't break the rules. Right? Enjoy.
Okay.
You know, and if they don't agree with any of it in the game, like, you can't ruin one guy's fun, because obviously if he built this character, he wanted to play it, and if he was just doing it to destroy the game, like if he was doing it to maliciously destroy the game, then
you really
his
should be
opinion
playing with
his
it anyway.
opinion isn't relevant anymore because he's actually just trying to break it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to ruin it.
He really
So-
shouldn't be a part of your table if that's the way he approaches it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the
So I think a good way to put it would just say that Rule 0 should be completely unnecessary.
yeah.
In,
Like-
in any real situation, 99% of the time, there's going to be a way to talk your way out of it, or negotiate, or bribe.
I guess the only situation, like now, like if I have to think about it, the only situation that I can see where a Rule 0 ruling might be necessary is when the GM like uncovers some sort of ridiculousness.
Yes.
For example, but once again, this is a sort of players agree kind of thing. And the ridiculous, like luck. Let's say luck, for example, right? If luck, you get this like official ruling that basically makes it so you have a feat that turns any disadvantage into hyper advantage. This is a core mechanic of the game. You can't just change that. And to bribe it away would be to basically bribe away. Well, you could bribe away the luck bonus. Like tell people not anybody with luck, bribe it away, take another feat, maybe take 2. Who cares? Just get rid of it. It's stupid. Or just you could retcon it, I guess, and follow it in lines with something else. But that's a bad example and it's taken me off track. I apologize. I don't know. If in the course of the game, like, just you randomly encounter something that is like, okay, he throws this attack, you thought it worked one way, and then the other player's like, hem, we're actually all dead, you TPK'd us. That would be where the Rule 0 comes into play.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this is the only time I can think of a Rule 0 coming into play. Whereas the GM set up a scenario, he set up a roadblock of a certain height. So let's say, it's like, yeah, alright, I'll throw Mind Flare at you guys. That's easy. They're not that hard. And then the players are like, you're reading Gorillon, not Mind Flare. And he's just like, what? Turns the page or whatever, and is like, oh. That would probably be like when the GM has made a mistake, and the player's like, nah, man, you fucked up. Fine, let's do it. You know, bring on the Mind Flare, and then you're just like, this is a TPK, man. Like that's like this Gorillon's like challenge 5, and this Mind Flare is like challenge 12. Like, you know, these guys are dead. You know, they're only like level 2.
Yeah.
I thought I was being heartless by throwing the monkey at them.
Yeah.
Well, now it's a chase scene and they should run.
Yeah, well,
I guess
but
that could be a
then
thing,
again,
but-
you could just say that Rule 0. Sorry, I meant gorillan. I meant giant gorilla. Why would a giant squid
wearing
face
a
monster?
mind flayer's head as a hat?
Yeah, like
There you go.
this is where, to me, the only time I can think of, this is where the exception would be with the Rule Zero, where like the party is now like chomping at the bit to be self-destructive. You were not planning on this self-destructive thing happening because that's not the roadblock you put up. Didn't make sense to you, and like for some reason you were just utterly mistaken, utterly, and you like Rule Zero it, and you're just like, no. This was my problem. I gotta fix it. You guys don't get to fight the Demi-Lich because I misunderstood what I misunderstood that Demi didn't mean half.
I can think of one case in which I use Rule Zero, and that is things like in 5th edition in particular, there's the option to give advantage. Right, and there's a lot of cases where advantage is not written into the rules, but it seems like a fair time to actually throw it in there. Like, you know, for example, yeah, you want to throw a lightning bolt on somebody. You know, that's pretty clear. The rules are set on exactly what that's going to be. But what if you're trying to grapple somebody and you're in the rain? You know, then maybe disadvantage on grappling each other should be, you know, considered. I like to do a thing where, and I guess this is literally during the game, where when people are in a position where I would give them advantage for something, I just do it.
Yeah, but I think it's already in the rules that you can do that.
Well, as
Like-
Rule Zero.
I don't even think it's Rule Zero. I think it's just like if there's a situation that produces an advantage, you say that you get an advantage. I don't think that's a Rule Zero judgment.
Yeah, because there's things like, for example, someone gives the help another action, right?
Well, there is no help another action, I don't think, in
Yeah.
5th, is there? What does it do?
You spend your action helping somebody, they get advantage on their roll.
Okay.
Now, one way Swampy likes to rule it is that he has one person roll against a DC 10 to see whether they help or not. That's not actually in the rules. That's his own shtick.
Yeah.
I give people advantage on attacking if they happen to be flanking on complete opposite sides of somebody. The way I look at it, it's just very difficult for someone to defend one side. And
Isn't that standard?
No.
Well, the flanking thing in 5th isn't standard?
Nope.
That's not in the rules.
Really?
Yeah, no. You can help another to give someone advantage, but the flanking, no, that's just optional. That's just your shtick.
That,
I'm certain that's in the rules somewhere.
yeah.
I feel like now I feel like we're doing the Monopoly free parking thing, where like everybody thinks free parking does all these things, and it's actually a square that does nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it literally does do nothing.
But all the house rules have come into play, and everyone's just sort of accepted them. But that I wouldn't call those Rule Zero judgments either, because like I didn't even know that wasn't a rule. How would I know? Well, other than by reading the damn book.
Well, the
but
rules
like,
just exist in people's heads anyways.
well, the flanking thing is I know for a fact the flanking thing would be an artifact of 30. Like people have been using those flanking bonuses
Yeah, you
forever.
used to be able to do like +2 or whatever.
You got sneak attack, walk flanks. You got all sorts of nasty
Yeah, now
stuff
in
on
order
flanks.
to-
A pair of rogues flanking you was you are dead.
Yeah.
Well, for example, sneak attack, that's a good example. Somebody, if you have someone adjacent or you have advantage to attack, you get to sneak attack,
Yeah.
right? But what if
Once per turn.
yes, but what if you find a situation where they wouldn't
Fifth.
necessarily have advantage, but you feel like it would be fair enough to give it to them anyways? To let them sneak attack?
What possible situation where they can get a sneak attack in would they not have advantage?
That's the question.
So that's my question to you. Like, can you even think of a theoretical like that? Because I can't. I don't think that theoretical exists.
All right, let's see. Theoretical. If we throw, surprising an ambush out of there, even that's an example. What about if somebody has like the alert feat? They don't get advantage from being struck by an invisible opponent or ambushed.
Then you can't sneak attack because they're alert.
Yes, they are alert. But you're saying if someone was invisible and hidden?
That's 5th edition alert.
Yeah. You get +5 and...
These freaking feats.
The feats are really good in this.
Oh yeah, well
A
that's
5th
because-
edition feat is
they're supposed to represent like 2 or 3 like 3rd edition feats.
Each feat is worth 2 stat points.
Yeah.
That's not
Like 2 points of strength is roughly supposed to be the equivalent of a feat.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're strong.
You don't get lots of feats though. Like you only get unlike
Well,
in
yeah, I
say
know
third or
it's-
Pathfinder,
Yeah, I
you
know
don't
what
get a
you
feat
mean.
every second level or whatever the nonsense is with as like a fighter. You would get
But
you get it I think every 4. I think a fighter gets it like
But
every
to
3
use
because
that
they
in-
get the stat buff every 3 and you
Yeah.
can take those feats.
But
What?
to use that example, let's say somebody was alert. Now, they are alert, but let's say you've got that's somebody else. They're in the opposite window across the street.
Mhm.
They're invisible. They've got their
Yeah, they got the
crossbow
whole
up,
thing.
They're ready to
cannot find
snipe.
them.
They're ready to snipe. Do they not have the chance to aim wherever they exactly want to? And that's what sneak attack's supposed to represent, is that you hit them in a vital area. Do they not have the time to aim for that bastard's neck if they feel like it? Even if that person is alert, even if they wouldn't get
Well,
advantage on attack,
How does the
should they still get
advantage?
sneak
How
attack?
does that rule read?
What's that?
Like how does the alertness
Alert?
rule read?
They get +5 initiative.
Yeah.
People who invisible attackers don't get advantage against them, and they're not surprised.
Okay, but that would mean that. But there are other things producing advantage, right? Like he's not an invisible attacker. He's an attacker that the guy is simply not aware of.
Yes.
Like he's not aware of it all. He's not an invisible attacker.
Well, and that's the thing is, even if this guy doesn't get advantage to hit, I think he should still be able to get a sneak attack in that case. And
Oh,
that's a
but-
very niche.
But I would argue he
example.
probably would get the advantage to hit.
You think
Yeah.
so?
Yeah. Like, yes, he's invisible, and if you want to take it in some weird literal way, it's like, yeah, because you're invisible, you're actually weaker, because he has the alertness feat, and invisible attackers are incapable of achieving advantage on any attack, no matter the situation, according to the rules.
Oh,
but that's not what it means. It means attackers that are invisible don't get advantage for being
Yes.
invisible.
that's right.
So, like, the alertness guy wouldn't care that you're invisible.
he doesn't
but-
care that he's being ambushed either.
Yeah, well, he's not. It's not that he's being ambushed.
Well, he's-
It's that
he's
he is
unaware.
unaware of a specific attack hitting him. And
that's
the
what I'm
advantage
saying.
would come from his complete obliviousness.
So you would give him awareness then, like you would give that person advantage anyways.
Yeah, because it's not the invisibility or the ambush that's causing it. It's this guy's complete, utter, oblivious lack of
And
lack of awareness
I think that
of,
makes
the, of the
complete
action.
sense. But
Because it's not the fact that he's invisible. It doesn't matter if the guy was invisible. Because the guy's a sniper on the other building and he's not looking at it. He's taking a dump. Right? He's not focused on the combat. His weapon's not drawn. Nothing's happening. He's not at all aware.
then that's when we're bringing
Then,
up
yeah.
Rule 0 is
But I wouldn't even say that's a Rule 0 judgment because
No,
because the
that's-
advantage he's getting is not from those things. I'm not altering the rules. I'm just saying that
no,
you
but
get
if
the advantage.
You're going to give him advantage circumstantially, situational.
Yeah.
But you're allowed to do that. The GM's allowed to provide
What
to
I'm saying is
produce
that that's
advantages or
something that doesn't
disadvantages.
exist as far as the rules is written. Rules is
I,
written.
I would argue that I'm sure it is. I'm sure somewhere it says that the GM can produce advantages or disadvantages based on
Oh,
the
sure
situation.
you can, but that's just the whole idea that you can fiat things.
No, but
That
if the
there is-
rules say it, then you're not evoking Rule 0. You're not changing the rules. If the rules of the Dungeons and Dragons game, like a 5th
Well,
edition,
the
somewhere
rules
in the
as they're
rules
written would
says that
say
the
that
GM
if that
can do
person
this.
has alert, that doesn't matter if there's an invisible sniper 30 feet away from them in the next building who's ambushing them. It's simply just not going to be effective.
Yeah, well, if you read the rules a certain way, you could say that the guy being invisible means no matter the situation, it's impossible
Well,
for
I
him to
wouldn't read
achieve
it like
advantage
that.
ever on anything.
I would not
According
read
to the
it
guy
that
with the
way.
alert. Yeah, well, but that's what I'm saying. Like that. But even still, like there's a. I'm pretty sure. Like I'd have to look it up, and I'm not going to look it up on radio.
No.
But like I'm pretty sure that there's something in there that says you can assign
You could. The
advantages
question
or
is,
disadvantages,
what are you
which
getting-
means that like
what are you
producing those
giving
things.
advantage for? It's not because he's invisible. It's not that he's ambushing him. So why is he getting advantage? It just
Because
says
he's
he-
catching the guy completely unawares.
Well, because there's no aiming rules.
Well, is it?
What do you
like,
mean by
why-
rules?
Well,
I
you
would
can't
say the
spend
guy
a turn
gets the
to-
advantage
maybe he's
because
got
you
true
can't
strike.
give the guy disadvantage. And the sniper is getting an advantage because the other guy who's oblivious to the attack can't get disadvantage to defend. There's no such thing.
Yeah, that's true.
So, like, that's the advantage. The advantage is this guy should have disadvantage, but the rules don't permit.
No, the rules themselves don't encapsulate that situation, but common sense, yes, that guy should have advantage, simply for the fact that he's got all the time in the world to shoot this guy wherever the hell he wants.
Then again, maybe not. Maybe the feat alertness is sufficient enough to say that the sniper doesn't get advantage.
Well, what's the radius on the alertness feat then?
It's not relevant.
It depends if someone's getting shot. What if I got a sharpshooter and I want to shoot this guy from 600
Maybe you just
feet
can't
away?
sneak attack a guy with alertness. That's the other way of looking at it.
he's
Like
just
if you're gonna push back on the GM can't assign, if it's a rule 0 argument that the GM assigns random advantages or disadvantages, then maybe that shouldn't be the case. Then maybe they shouldn't be able to assign random disadvantages, and the players can only get those advantages and disadvantages based
that
on
would
the
suck.
rules of the game.
That would suck, and I think would take a lot out of it.
Well, yeah, it would suck. It would suck a lot.
Yep.
But it would certainly show how bad the system is. Like, if it literally was in the system that is the case, then that system is probably unplayable. And the only reason it is playable is because the players, before the game has even started,
The DM's
have done the free parking thing, and have all sort of understood ahead of the game that certain things are real and certain things,
And when things
even
don't
if they're
make
not written
sense,
in
the
the book.
DM can skew the odds with advantage.
I
Well,
guess
it would-
so. Or that the GM just does that. That's a thing that they do. That's part of the rules of the game.
Yeah.
Sometimes the situation, like sometimes that guy's arm's been cut off, so he has you have advantage on hitting him because he doesn't have his shield up. Or he's a hunchback and so he's crap at this or whatever. I'm thinking 300 now.
I
Yeah.
agree. Rule 0 is poorly defined and
Well, because it's not a defined rule. The whole point is it's not a defined
Well,
rule, but it is garbage.
It
because
is a defined rule, though. It's as we brought up on Google and Urban Dictionary.
yeah, but it's not defined in any book. It is
No,
it's defined
it is
as an
unwritten.
unwritten rule.
Yes.
So this is why the Urban Dictionary rule is just as good as any other one. That's why I pulled it up.
Oh, Bessem had theirs written down in their T20 book.
Yeah. Bessem was a universal system, though, and it almost made sense, except Bessem's trash.
Nobody likes every character being broken.
Well, the point of Bessem is
Well, no.
you're supposed to cut things out of the game. It's kind of like Cast is the same way, to be fair.
You're supposed to
But,
throw
like,
out all these options
the-
and say, but
it-
not these.
Yeah. Like, the book is like, it's a universal system. Not every system wants you to have this, and this, though. So just don't put them in, or don't
Cross
use
them out.
Don't cross them out.
So you're
Or
saying-
cross
cross
those
them
out, or don't use them.
So in our Call of Cthulhu game, I can't have a giant robot?
Well, it'd be a Cthulhu Tech game then, and the answer would be that'd be fine. But if the GM said no giant robots because we're not going to use the giant robot rules, and I don't want you to have access to giant robots, and everyone agreed to that, yeah, no giant robots. Unless for some reason you find a way to screw the rules around and get a giant robot anyway.
Thanks for allowing me to have an item of power, which allows me to summon a giant robot.
Yeah, we'll call this robot a golem. But yeah, it's a giant robot. It's the same thing.
I guess. Kind of.
They're basically the same thing. Iron golems are just Terminators. Not quite.
I'm gonna start describing them like that. It's just these iron skeletal.
It could look like anything.
Yeah. They
Terrifying.
They could, but you make them sound like Terminators, and the first thing people are gonna be like, "What the hell is he talking about?" No one will have no idea what it is at first. They're like, "It's a skeleton. It's a metal skeleton. It's a homebrew creature."
Man, if you just describe them as literally, instead of being like size enormous with a giant, like with the stupid D&D like monstrous manual description of them, if you describe them as a suit of armor, like it's a suit of full plate walking towards you, it's got a rapier.
People don't run.
Nobody runs from that.
No.
It's like it's medium sized, or it's like it's fit for a very large man or an ogre perhaps. It's like, now it's size large. But it's just like, you just think of some bad, like, British style suit of full plate walking towards you. And you're like, well, that's not that frightening. Yeah, it turns out, yeah, but,
Well, that's true.
Then it starts breathing toxic gas and you gotta run. You're just like, oh dear. Game over.
Oh no.
I love fighting iron golems.
Okay, so,
I don't think
I think we've covered Rule 0 quite some amount. But like the GM is not always correct thing. Alright, so you criticize your GM, you say he's wrong. You two argue it out. The other players are neutral. All right? The GM rules.
We've been in this situation before.
Yeah, the GM rules that, no, I'm not letting you have this one. This is the way it's going to be. You know, the idea that comes to mind, the classic idea, I think, is the electrical magic attack in the water scenario.
Oh,
you know,
jeez.
almost every GM encounters this. It's like, is he in the water? Are you shocking grasp? Does he take extra damage?
They should, because that's cool. The rule of cool should be rule 0.
There should be a rule of cool. Honestly, the rule of cool is a much more interesting rule. You should give bonus dice for good descriptions, bonus stuff for that. Like, yeah, I agree. But what I'm saying too is the first part of this, the GM is not always correct. You should argue with your GM when things don't make sense.
Yeah.
But when the GM says, no, this is not the way it is, write that precedent down. Pocket it, if you will. That is a tool for your future safety. Because sometimes GMs like to do, they like to say no when it's against their characters, but yes when their character does it to you. So when you're standing in the water and they cast Shocking Grasp on you, you go, whoa there, Tiger, and you pull that precedent out of your pocket, you lay it on the table, and you said, remember back 14 sessions ago when you said, nay, this is no good? Yeah. I don't think that this is correct. You can't be doing this, because now you're just changing the rules.
Yeah.
And usually that's, I don't know, if your GM's not just a brickhead, they'll usually go, oh, all right, you know, then he'll do some other more horrible thing. But
Drop a mountain on it.
yeah, well, they'll, you know, I'm sure you'll evoke your GM's rage there, but whatever,
For a
that's
little
fine.
bit.
For a little bit, you'll have to suffer one attack, and things will go back on as normal.
Right.
But even still, like I think that's the way to go about that. You know, the rule as it was originally written is basically it was the GM's not always right, and it's the job of the player to call out issues of description or logic to the GM. But if it's not, if the argument's not won, to keep the precedent in mind.
Yeah.
And,
I agree with that.
and so yeah, the basically the first part is if the GM's not understanding the way the world sort of works, like if they're saying things like, you know, because the princess is a woman, she automatically falls in love with you. And you're like, wait,
Welcome
what?
to red pill.
Yeah, red pilled. You know, and you're just like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, this is nonsense. It's like, yeah, that's what women do, man. They just fall in love with the first guy they ever see. You know?
Yeah.
You know, you should argue that, because that doesn't make any sense. It's like, but I literally slapped her. It's like, yeah, you're the first.
Stockholm Syndrome.
So
Yeah,
I read
Stockholm.
some interesting data on monkeys. That
It's racist.
no, it's
It's racist against monkeys.
I'm making a joke because there's bonobo
yeah,
monkeys.
jokes, racist jokes. This is a clean podcast.
Bonobo monkeys. There's a weird thing they have where the two kinds of monkeys that have the most sex are the ones that give each other food and the ones that beat each other. So yes, they will literally just slap each other until someone puts out because they're bonobos and they're doing it all the time, and it's terrible.
That's culture.
That's their culture, and that's a terrible, shitty culture. But it works for the bonobos, I guess.
Huh.
But no, I definitely agree.
There we go. That's the hug box I want.
Yep.
See, we got to get out of this sad argumentative state. We got to talk about the hug box when the rules are good.
The thing is, GM's not always right, and I personally appreciate it when a player can point out a mistake I've made, because I've either overlooked a rule, because there's a lot of rules, and players, they need to know everything their character does, or should, as we covered last week. GM, on the other hand, you're kind of expected to be, good enough at all of them. But that sometimes means overlooking things, making mistakes, and that's not even getting into the sometimes saying something completely mistaken, like, all right, so this guy attacked me. Why? I said I didn't enter the room. Oh, you're right. You didn't enter the room. All right, so he can't attack you then.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that where, no, players shouldn't just, sit over passively and say whatever the DM says goes.
Yeah. the other thing too is there are not rules for everything. There are like the nature of the nature of being for a lot of things is not written explicitly in any book. You know, there aren't any rules for what happens if you've put too much cake in your mouth, right? Like there are no rules for what happens if you sit out in the sun too long. You know, there are some things that GMs can sort of use, like there are precedents set in some of these books sometimes, but often no.
Yeah.
You know, there's no explicit rule that says humans can't breathe underwater. I don't even look it up. I'm sure that 5th edition doesn't have that rule somewhere. There's a lot of unsaid rules, because it's like the nature of being is a thing. Like the nature of things is not something that you have enough space in the world to write about everything in a book, right? But like sometimes the GM, like I'm sort of going off the rails here, talk about nature of being, but sometimes the GM just doesn't always have the foresight to adjudicate something like that, or like, you know, maybe it's like, oh yeah, he fires an arrow through like 3 planks of wood. It's like, dude, that is not gonna happen. Like, that is, it's just the way that physics works. It's not gonna work. Or it's like, you know, he's got like a sweet robe that wears 3 layers of silk, and because he heard that silk is good against arrows. It's like, no, that doesn't work like that.
That's not
He's still gonna take the damage.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like this, like weird, like this kind of weird, like there's no rules for this kind of thing, but maybe the GM's using it, or maybe a player's using it, or whatever. Like, these aren't rule 0 judgments. When the GM's like, no, you can't do this thing that's not written in the rules, and it's not written anywhere. It's just some weird shit you made up, because nobody agreed to do that. It's not changing the rules. You're just not allowing it. But like I said, conversely, right? When the GM does this kind of nonsense, and it doesn't make any goddamn sense, you're like, dude, no.
Come on.
This is silly.
Yeah.
You know.
The idea should be that everyone's sitting at the table with the same goal in mind. Let's have fun. Let's play a good game, right? And so.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. And so things like negotiation like that should absolutely work. They should be like your first and second line of defense. Because if you can't talk it out, what the heck's the problem there?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, oh yeah, I forgot. We have a new segment.
Oh man.
We have a new segment because the gentleman who always comments on our things, his name is Don, and he likes to comment, and he has, while we've been streaming, posting stuff, so we're going to read it. He's been posting stuff for us to read, as far as I understand. So we're going to read it. Yeah, so it started up here. He was like, what's your next rule? I'll give you comments ahead of the time to address. And I'm like, oh man, Dawn is in the house. The next rule is the GM's not always right. It's going on air in 10 minutes. I realized I hadn't listened. I have unlimited data on the phone. Okay, yeah, I agree. The GM is not always right. Player may know the rules better than the GM. Okay, so we discussed that. Player is not always right. Players sometimes know the rules better than the GM.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's more acute, I think, when we're not talking about rules. We're talking about the way the GM applies stuff that's outside of the rules.
Yeah, physics to the world.
Physics, or like the reactions of people.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you said a mean thing about somebody, the entire village gets up and attacks you. You're like, what?
You accidentally kicked the chicken.
Yeah.
You're now wanted for $1 million.
All of the chickens turn their head and start attacking you. That's just how chickens work.
Chicken. That's what it is.
Kicking the chicken. Yeah. There you go. We coined the term right here on the Delirium Engine, everybody. Kicking the chicken. When we see that merch, you're going to have a Kick the Chicken merch. Buy the shirt. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
The GM does have some latitude to bend the rules. The GM is setting their setting. It's their land, their idea of law. And in some cases, the player may have an our world view where the GM has an in-game world view. So,
That's actually
That makes
pretty
sense.
insightful, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. But in a sense, it is their world because they're the ones who are settling it, so to speak. And yes, it makes sense. But then if the players are getting into this world with the setting, and the GM's like, we're playing in this setting, And then the GM says, in this setting, this is how it works. And the player's like, oh, we weren't aware of that. It's like, well, now you are. Everyone learns something new every day. That makes sense. Land their idea, play as our worldview versus in-game worldview. Yeah, that would probably be the only thing I could think of there. Where it's like if the PCs didn't know the kind of game they were getting into, well, they're the fools for signing up for it if they don't like it. And if they don't like it and it's really ridiculous, then they won't play again. Take me as a history major. Well, that's not how that worked. The GM in your world, not this world. Okay, so yeah, what he's talking about is the physics thing. So,
Yeah.
He's talking like he's saying that the GM can overrule it because he says in his setting this is how it works. So this is like the setting I like to use, the Rotting Realms, saying that lead absorbs magic and just consumes it. You can't breach a leaden shield with a fireball, and leaden arrows can go through walls of force. Like, it just doesn't matter. They ignore it.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. But that's what he's talking about there. Okay, next. Canadian democracy and America democracy in terms of electoral systems? Still a vote, but different guidelines and outcome. What is he talking about? A world made by a GM may be different in terms of setting, assuming it's explained. You can carry from the physics and rules and technological progression and innovations that we had... You can? Innovations that we had in a Western European setting. You can vary from the physics. Okay, you can vary from like Earth timeline is what he's saying.
Okay.
Okay. That's your setting. You can do what you want. As long as the players know about it. Your world could have indoor electricity but not gunpowder. There could be that's actually an interesting point, and we should bring it up in a future podcast about what a world of magic would actually look like. And the sort of like Cole's Notes version I've always said is it would look like say a medieval setting with high magic would look like a modern setting that just hasn't got the weapons yet. Wizards would find a way to make a shitload of money doing wizardly things, and everything like magic would be the paste that glues together modern contemporary concepts using old school techniques. So you'd have like magical Boeing 747 ornithopters, right? You would have ridiculous stuff like that. And I know a lot of I've had other players that I've played with reject these ideas, but I'm just like, dude, that's what every player does. The minute they get their hands on something, they try to use their modern knowledge against the setting and somehow win.
Yes.
All right.
I wonder where you're getting these notes from.
In terms of GM's option, though, no, it's not always right. Rule 0 thing about the books are a guideline, and what the GM says goes. I agree that the GM has final say, but they should be flexible. More of a GM rule than a player rule. Oh, okay, yeah. I guess so. I think we've discussed this plenty.
Yeah.
I think we know our positions on this. I vaguely disagree with him then, if that's the case. Like, Rule 0 should just not be used, and the players should. Unless you're not talking about things that are the rules, in which case you're talking about, adjudications. And adjudications are different. Like outside of the rules. So, for players, I say go with it in-game. Don't start a session-ending fight. Talk to the GM afterwards. If there's something you don't like as a player, discuss it later. Don't ruin the session.
Sounds great.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Just don't deal with it right now. And I'm not streaming anything. I'm about to take out home. If any of this works, use it. Well, enjoy your takeout, Don. And we used all of it, including the stuff you didn't expect would show up in this wonderful template. And now that we've been fully doxed, I'm sure that inquisitive listeners can look us all up and find out who we all are, and they will do so if it ever comes to that. So let's not get into politics.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
But we need some infamy to get into politics.
Or who cares? Whatever. Infamy's fine.
I love infamy. It's so much more interesting.
All right. Well-
let's just burn everything to the ground.
Now that we've escaped the Don John,
You hear this guy?
That's generally where politics leads.
where
To burning everything to the ground.
fair enough.
Only in 1800s France.
Well,
I don't know. Maybe it just takes longer in the modern day.
yeah, things are more sturdy. Concrete doesn't burn as well.
You know, it is actually true. Things are very stable these days. It's actually kind of strange.
I don't know. How long was Rome stable for before it started developing cracks and falling apart?
It was stable for 1,000 years after it had already fallen apart. It was just
but like
standing there dead.
before it started falling apart, like how long was Rome in its prime?
Rome in its prime was
Yeah.
not actually very long.
Okay, well, and the build up,
Oh, but if you're talking about the
the
fact
setup and the release.
when they became this big monolithic force that just dominated Europe,
Sure.
yeah, that lasted for several hundred years, like 400 years.
Okay, and how long has the United States been a country?
Like, what, 207?
Yeah, 200. It's like an extra 100 and something years older than.
Yeah, so
230.
as a
give or
global
take.
superpower, like yeah, it looks real good on paper, but we haven't even passed the 400-year mark.
Oh, they've already
You
got
know.
their cracks showing.
Yeah, exactly. So like, maybe there's something to this whole burning things down thing. We just got to give it some time. And now that we're on the topic of politics, I think we'll have some closing statements and probably end this out. So I'll
Well,
just
you know what
eliminate
they say.
this powerful
Jet fuel can't
topic.
melt steel beams. So
You know what's sad? That is a
it's
thing
an
people
inside
say.
job.
That is a thing people say.
They do say that. I think there's some pretty good examples on both sides of what.
Steel memes either.
Yeah, there
No.
you go.
There we go.
I think my favorite 9/11 sort of blurb meme was 2 planes hit 2 buildings and 3 fell down.
Wow.
What?
Oh, because of
Building
Tower
7. Building 7 fell down.
It collapsed.
2
even
planes
though it
hit
didn't.
2 buildings and 3 fell
Oh,
down.
no, the Pentagon was hit too.
I don't count that one because that wasn't in New York.
It's true.
That's a separate incident that happened at the same time. 3 planes hit 3 buildings and 4 fell down. The statement is still funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, so closing statements. What do you think? The rule's not on the screen anymore.
No, oh god. My backup's gone. Yeah, it's generally the GM isn't correct all the time. Feel free to argue with him every now and then. Just hope it don't bite you in the butt later.
I noticed that you never got to bring up that note that
No,
you
I
had
didn't.
there.
No.
Would you like to tell a D&D story
I got
as
a
your
little,
closing statement?
A little bit.
All right, well, you go ahead. The Spartan has a D&D story for everybody. Go ahead
Yeah,
and
just
listen.
a little bit. A while back, I was in a D&D session with our buddy Mekhalikhar here, being the GM, and I brought up me being a bit of a history and military buff, brought up a few issues I had with his setting and how he was running his militaries.
They were very small, and they weren't very powerful.
No, but I did bring up the fact that there are certain things that even a small, not very powerful military should be doing that would affect the world differently, and how the progression of technology in this world should be far advanced than where it is. And we went on for about 2 hours having a loud discussion about our personal views, and of course the GM won out in the end. And but I do remember the next session came in, and yeah, apparently he had got to thinking about what I had said, and in the end it made my job as a player even harder. Because now they were
took
doing
your good advice and gave them all a massive buff.
Yeah.
Increased their numbers, fortified their technology base, gave them an air force above and beyond their original existing one. They had fortress cities now, and full accoutrements and cannons and artillery weapons. So
anti-magic technology. With
well, it never
lead.
came up.
Lead.
They had their lead.
Yeah,
They had
made sure
lead.
that they had lead everything, you know, and they found a way to somehow circumvent that so they can have their own magical artifice with defended against lead bullets.
Yeah. So that was fun to find out. It's like, oh yeah, I kind of got my way, but it also shot me in the foot to do so.
It's a double-edged sword, that.
Yep.
Sometimes he'll take... Beware what you wish for, because sometimes you may get it. Closing statements, Mr. Dagwood.
Oh, all in all, good chat. A lot of terrible things were brought to light. But overall, I think I personally, as a DM, really appreciate it when players bring up my mistakes, as well as when they confess their own, because the important thing is that we're all working together to make the game function. As far as Rule 0, I definitely disagree with the way it's written. I do think as a concept that there is a little room for it, at least for those unpredictable, unexpected situations, but only in the sense that I think it's fair to say that the DM has final say, but that doesn't mean that they should use it. They should always keep an open mind and a listening ear.
All right. So, as you may guess, I am fully endorsing the GM is not always right rule. As we've already explained, I was told I was wrong in the way I constructed my setting. And I took that information to heart and I changed it. And I made sure that in the future, I could better accommodate my players' wishes for a more vigorous and more brutal military for them to be antagonized by. And that's good. It had secret police now. It had a whole bunch of different organizations. It had a full-blown military. That, to me, is a perfect example of why when the GM is wrong, players needs to bring it up. Let everyone know. And, there are other times with, like I said, the precedents. When the GM sets a precedent because he won't... because he doesn't want to bend on some sort of ruling that he's made. Just take it to heart. Take the precedent. Go, okay, that's the precedent you're running with. And we'll go with that. And use it to your advantage if you can. And if not, just keep it in your pocket for later because it might come up. As for Rule 0 being garbage once the game has started, I fully endorse this. Rule 0 is garbage. It's trash. It needs to be thrown in the dumpster where it belongs. The whole concept runs on the idea that you're playing a system that's garbo. And if you're playing bad systems, maybe you should not be doing that.
You could be playing Cast.
You could be playing Cast, an excellent system that's free of charge and always will be. Now, shilling aside though, if you don't like some of the things in the system, work on it before it. And if you don't like something that happens in game according to the rules, like that someone's following the rules and they break the game, just try to work around it or bribe them. Just if it really has to go, bribe them or just convince the players that, guys, this is gonna like destroy everything. Can we like not do this? Have a level and some experience and maybe an extra feat or some other thing, or just have it go away. And if the player doesn't want to do that, you know what? Maybe just sometimes it enriches the game to have a player who's broken. I had those like when we were playtesting Cast. I had a guy who would break the system almost every session, and he got to grandfather in so many overpowered abilities, and it was fine. Like it didn't. Having a broken character doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. It just makes them a bit stronger, right? And if they're going to try to affect the world in a way, every character has their weaknesses, and especially because this was Cast, so you can't break the game that way. Like you could have 100 trillion attack, and someone would just shoot you with a magic missile and you die. Like it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
The only time that you could really bust the system would be as if you had like unlimited hit points and they were universal.
I did remember actually a fun time where I was running a campaign where, according to the book, the player had done some nonsense that allowed them to get a hold of about 1 million gold pieces. And they were like level 3.
Sweet.
Yeah. And
what do you do with 1 million gold?
That's what I did. I said, go ahead. Let them have it. And they managed to squirrel it away and steal it right from under the noses of these Platinum Knights, and they built this huge magical academy, castle, fortress in the wilderness, and they did amazing things. It was awesome.
Yeah, and your players just world built. Even the most powerful character who doesn't really add anything to the world, you can turn him into a monster of legend. Like he's gone now, but people might be like, instead of the Great Satan, they would call him the Great Danwick Merchant Thruster, or whatever that character's name is. That's really the gold in this series of shows that we do, is when we make up random names for characters, and they're usually just the most ridiculous. It's like the Barbarian, Hadrick Wrinklemeyer, and Gorbok the Stronk. Anyway, we're off the rails. I hope you enjoyed this series, everybody. Like and subscribe. Whoever's listening, you guys are great. Leave a comment. I answer all the comments. Try making my job harder now. And thank you to Don for supplying us with information or points that he wanted covered. And if anybody else has points they want covered in an upcoming episode, let us know. The next episode will be next week. We may have a skip, like a party, but I don't think so. The next one is going to be iCharacter. The iCharacter series, and episode 1 is going to be Name. What's in a name?
That's a good one.
Yeah. Alright, so everybody, I hope you enjoyed the show. Like and subscribe. You guys take care. Have yourself a great night.